The NBA free agency and trade landscape is finally predicted to start moving again, as league executives are currently holding in-person discussions during the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. Not only are the Lakers looking to finalize Kyrie Irving's deal, but the Jazz are also conflicted about Donovan Mitchell's future. In today's video, we'll be discussing all the ongoing NBA rumors and deals, so let's dive right in. First up, Lakers are looking to get creative to get Kyrie deal done. It's being reported that the Brooklyn Nets are remaining steadfast in their demand about the Kyrie Irving for Russell Westbrook exchange deal. According to Marc Stein of Bleacher report, any potential deal would need to include some first-round draft capital thrown in on the LA Lakers end as a minimum. With Westbrook set to earn almost $11 million more than Irving next season, the Nets are adamant that any straight swap would require the Lakers to sweeten the deal with some form of meaningful draft compensation. Not to mention, it would cost Brooklyn an additional $50 million once luxury tax penalties are factored in. However, despite the complications arising due to the large salary discrepancy and clear downgrade in talent Brooklyn would be forced to swallow, ESPN's Brian Windhorst reported that he's pretty confident that a deal will eventually get done. The NBA insider went on to explain that the Lakers appeared to be the only viable trade option in a very narrow market for Irving, but predicted that it would be a fight along the way. In positive news for Lakers fans, it's being reported by several NBA media outlets that a potential multi-team trade deal involving Brooklyn, LA, and Toronto may be imminent, with all three teams' respective GMs, Rob Pelinka, Sean Marks, and Masai Ujiri, being seen having an interesting conversation over the weekend at the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. Whether these discussions could involve Kyrie Irving heading to the Lakers or Kevin Durant heading to the Raptors, or a combination of both, is not clear as of yet. So what's in store for Irving's future? These speculations follow an earlier report by Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report that sources indicated the San Antonio Spurs could potentially be involved in a multi-team Irving Westbrook deal, with the Spurs taking Westbrook's salary into cap room for the draft considerations. Such a deal could potentially help the Nets generate a massive trade exception for as much as Irving's entire salary. However, the Spurs would also need to clear an additional salary for Westbrook. It's been suggested that in return for Westbrook and draft picks, and perhaps possibly an additional player, such as Talon Horton-Tucker or Kendrick Nunn, the Lakers could land Irving from the Nets and either Doug McDermott, who's owed $27.5 million over the next 2 seasons, or Josh Richardson, who's expiring at $12.2 million from San Antonio. Outside of ridding themselves of a giant Kyrie Irving-sized headache, the major appeal for the Nets in a deal of this kind would be the potential for a trade exception at up to $36.9 million, which would represent the largest in the entire NBA history. By trading Irving to the Lakers and taking minimal value back in way of another player's salary, the Nets would be able to create a trade exception equal to Irving's first-year salary, in this case, $36.9 million. The value of the exception goes down with the salaries of the players taken in. For instance, a $10 million player acquired by Brooklyn in the trade would leave them with $26.9 million on the exception. The exception could then be used to trade anytime within the next year for a player or multiple players, with salaries adding up to the amount without adding to their cap and luxury tax liabilities. Next, Jazz douse Donovan deals as teams take cheap shots. Reportedly, the Utah Jazz have shut down offers from a handful of teams for star point guard Donovan Mitchell. According to Andy Larson of the Salt Lake Tribune, following the Rudy Gobert trade, they felt that league executives were trying to pounce on what they perceived to be an opportunity to get Mitchell on the cheap. Larson said that according to league sources, one offer came from Miami before the Gobert trade was even finalized. However, the Jazz found that offer insufficient. In addition, Miami's win now roster now has limited picks and young players to trade. While Utah have knocked back on all offers for the 25-year-old so far, Larson believes the team is now willing to move on from Mitchell for the right price. In fact, the Jazz general manager, Justin Zanuck, hinted that Mitchell's status with the Jazz might be determined by what other teams are offering for him. It looks like if the Jazz got a return that made them more likely to be a championship team, they would do the deal. This news follows an earlier report by ESPN's Tim McMahon, where Utah Jazz GM Justin Zanuck refused to label Mitchell as untouchable when he was asked if the 3-time All-Star would be traded. Zanuck said that change is inevitable in the NBA after all. While he wasn't trying to be cryptic, Donovan was on their roster and he's an important part of what they were trying to do. He said things evolve in the NBA, so I couldn't sit here and say that anybody is untouchable. We're trying to build a championship team, but there's no intent there to trade Mitchell at all. Plus, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. While Donovan's days in Salt Lake City appear numbered, ESPN's Brian Windhorst believes at the very least he needs to prepare himself for the team to enter an inevitable rebuild. And now for some other related news. Firstly, Delhi is closing in on his NBA return. According to ESPN's Dave McMahon, dynamic. Australian NBA champion Matthew Dellavedova is allegedly hoping to secure a surprise return to the NBA when he works out for the Sacramento Kings during the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. The free agent guard is hoping to get an opportunity to reunite with his former coach Mike Brown, who gave him his NBA start in Cleveland. Brown is now head coach of the Kings after spending last season playing for Melbourne United in the NBL. Next, free agency targets for Chicago Bulls. The world of the NBA is filled with new drafts and constant trades each new season, and the Chicago Bulls are known to have had their ups and downs. They're now looking to build out their roster and create a winning team with free agents. We can see that the Chicago Bulls are at a crossroads of sorts. They've had some legendary years, back when Michael Jordan, the legend himself, was still a part of the team, and even had a pretty good run with Derrick Rose. Jordan was undoubtedly the jewel in their crown, and the reason they have 6 championship rings. His power duo with Scottie Pippen, led by coach Phil Jackson, ruled the NBA for 6 long years. Now it's pretty obvious how far they've fallen. In recent years, the team that was instrumental in making the NBA and basketball famous has been a shadow of its glory days, and the Derrick Rose era didn't bring them anywhere near the top of their game. So now, what they need is a core player to build their team around. Right now, that player seems to be none other than Zach LaVine. While there are talks of him becoming a free agent, it seems likely that he'll be re-signing with the Bulls. But that also means that if he gets a mega deal, they'll lose quite a lot of their budget. Also, Kawhi Leonard's off-season progress has been revealed. Typically, whenever a player suffers from an ACL injury, it takes them about 10 to 12 months of rest to be able to play again. When asked how long the player would be out, the team representatives didn't give a clear answer. In fact, they clarified that it totally depends on Leonard's recovery speed. Not just that, Leonard himself said that he and the team would have to see how fast he gets better. He added that he wants to return as healthy and strong as he was before he got injured. He also explained that he had signed a long-term deal with the team, as he would like to play the next season with them. But that's not all. He also said he wanted to secure some money and a place where he could return. Not just that, Leonard also said that if he didn't want to be a Clipper, he wouldn't have signed a long-term contract. But he did, and that's because he really wanted to be a Clipper for a long time. Many people doubted the player's loyalty to the team due to his absence this season. However, the player said that he's here to be a Clipper, and he isn't leaving it for any other team unless something drastic happens. The situation is much better now, and fans hope to see their favorite player again soon. The maximum time he needs to rest is a year, and it's already about 11 months since he was sidelined. So here's some good news for all the NBA fans. Kawhi will return sooner than expected. And that's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on the Lakers' creative plan to get Kyrie? Do you think the Utah Jazz may dump Donovan Mitchell? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.